Hey folks, this is Tony. I'm here with a special guest. This is Tony Schaefer. He owns Monster Cards.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on, Tony. Like you say, I own Monster Cards, and I've been at it with my business since 2003, but worked in a card shop since 1997, and of course a collector from way before then. So, as we're going to see with this ballot, it ranges in years, and I started, of course, with modern cards, and then eventually got back into vintage and pre-war. So I feel like I've got opinions on kind of the whole gamut of these guys here.
So much like how I feel the Baseball Hall of Fame should be voted in each year for the ballot, there's an emotional attachment to a player, or in this case, just cards, and then there's the iconicness of the player himself. In our case with cards, there's an iconicness of a card. Some iconic cards in the hobby that are Hall of Fame worthy may contain a elite player, and then there's also other cards which have the perfect storm, such as the 52 Topps Mantle, iconic set, iconic player. It just has a little bit of everything. So when we go over your votes, how do you think you're going to vote? With more of your personal thoughts, or more of just impersonal?
Yeah, you bring up a good point, right? We both have a lot of experience in the hobby, and I kind of balanced it, right? I drew upon some of my experience as a dealer to which cards are really popular in the hobby. And then I've got one or two that are kind of like sentimental favorites to me too. I think that looking back at some of the other inductees, there's a bit of kind of whimsy, right, to some of these that are in there, like the Ripken, or I think like the '86 Donruss Canseco, right? I mean, these are cards that they might not be huge cards now, but there's a little bit of a fun to them. So I tried to stay within that spirit too.
Great. So before we go over your votes and review the ballot, just wanted to give a quick thank you to Ray from Philly. He's been doing this this is his 8th year. He puts a lot of work into it. There's also a football sports card Hall of Fame in addition to the baseball, and Ray and I have been in conversations about creating a basketball card Hall of Fame. So more about that in the future. If you like to follow Ray, here's his YouTube page. I'll have a link to it in this video. Ray is also on Instagram. Here is his Instagram page. The official Baseball Card Hall of Fame website can be reached at www.thebaseballcardhalloffame.com. I'll have a link to that too. A lot of good information here. I'll also include a link to the existing 71 cards that are in the Hall of Fame. So let's bring up the PowerPoint presentation and look at the ballot that Tony filled out for us. Okay, Tony, here we have Ray's PowerPoint. He was nice enough to share it. Title slide, as folks may or may not know, voting started April 14th. The last date of vote is 8 p.m. EST on Monday, May 12th. And then on Wednesday, May 14th at 8 p.m., Ray's going to have a YouTube Live where he'll go over which cards made the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to go over the rules. I think most folks know about them. However, please feel free to pause the video here and resume after you had a chance to read. So here we're going to go through Tony, or I call it Monster Cards, yes votes. And Tony, kick it off.
All right. So first card that Ray presented in chronological order was this Cap Anson Goodwin card. And this isn't my top vote of the 10, but I do think it's worthy of induction. Cap Anson, maybe questionable character, but this card, nonetheless, very, very sought after. He only has very few cards, and of course, first to get 3,000 hits. The background, the color on this card make it super desirable. So I think it's worthy of induction.
Have you had the opportunity to ever handle one of these cards or any of his other cards?
I don't think I've had an Anson. No, I don't think I've had any of his few cards actually. And we could say this about a lot of cards, but it's one that's shot up here over the last 5 years too. So, this card is usually pushing 5 figures.
Okay. Folks may also be wondering what I have on the top of the screen, 2002 Top 200 Sports Cards. I'm just referring to the book here that Joe Orlando put out. It's called The Top 200 Sports Cards in the Hobby. It's a little bit dated now, but a lot of the content still applies. So that's where we're getting this information. And I also took the 100th issue of Beckett with Jackie Robinson on the cover. There's an article in here with the top 100 post-war sports cards created by Mike Payne. He wrote the article, and that was his basis for the book that he ended up published. Just wanted to quickly tell folks so if they see a reference on a future slide.
And Tony, you bring up those books and those lists, and I have to thank you for introducing me to this Hall of Fame ballot, because I wasn't familiar with it before you brought it up. So I see maybe even one day this becoming like its own registry category. I mean, could you see something like that happening someday? Just from humble beginnings to, obviously it's going to be star-studded, something that collectors really are drawn to.
I didn't think about that, but if you look at the Mike Payne set registry that was created, now I know Joe Orlando used to run PSA, but we do have the Top 200 Sports Cards Hall of Fame, this book. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and Ray being a big PSA set registry fan for the checklist benefit of it, in addition to helping track his collection. Yeah.
You just never know what could happen down the road, right?
Yeah, Ray, I think you got a campaign you need to push with our PSA friends. How about this card? This card means a lot to me. Unfortunately, I don't own it, but I know someone who does.
Thank you there. Sure thing. I do. I was lucky enough to pick up one of these recently, and actually it is sold, or just kind of waiting to get payment. So I have one. I'll forward you, and you can throw her in here for people to look at, but for a limited time only, because it'll be shipped out here in another week probably. This is another one. I think it's deserving. I looked at the past inductees again, and of course the Wagner's in, easy. The Plank is also in, which is just because of the the magnitude of the price is off the beaten path for people, right? Even the hardcore T206 guys really don't think that they're going to get the big 4 for the set. And I think I would lobby to have that changed to the big 3, right? Because this Magie is it's quite a bit cheaper than the Wagner, the Plank, or the Doyle, which the Doyle is not inducted yet, and people don't really talk about that Doyle a lot. I think that one reason this Maggie's more in the conversation, and more people know about it, is because it's a little bit cheaper. So I think it's worthy overall. I think it's a neat, little story to go along with the T206 set. So it gets my vote.
I remember in the 80s, specifically 1984, reading issues of baseball cards and other publications. And my mom brought home an antique book once, and it had baseball cards. It's a small section near the back, and that's the first time I heard about this Maggie error card. And it was written the same paragraph as the Wagner and the Plank. So I think at one time, maybe the big three were Maggie, Wagner, and Plank. And since the Joe Doyle got more attention, and we just found out how scarce it is after it was identified, then it became the big four. Now, I might be incorrect, but that's just an observation as an 8-year-old, as you know, as I had at that year. But yeah, I definitely see it going to the big three with like the Maggie kind of like at the end of it, trying to stay in that big four.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a cool piece of history. I didn't know that.
Ooh, I like this card.
All right. Yeah. Grover Cleveland Alexander, a mercurial player, super, super talented. Just a part of baseball history where guys maybe had some some off-field demons, or a bigger part of the guys still do, but maybe a larger percentage of MLB players had some off-field demons. But super, super high end for some seasons. And here we have this culmination of great player and super, super iconic set with the 14 Cracker Jacks. So I think overall this card's worthy, and it got my vote as well.
Growing up in the 1980s, like I previously mentioned, I was aware of the Cracker Jack cards to some extent. I knew there was a Wagner, there was a Cobb, a Shoeless Joe Jackson, especially after the Field of Dreams. So where would you rank this card among those elite Hall of Famers in that set? Because the 14 and the 15 set, they're chock full of Hall of Famers and even Federal League players in the 1915 set.
Yeah, I would still put him behind those guys. He is not that top tier, and I don't know if you mentioned the Matty either, right? With that,
No.
well, two poses, right? He's got the vertical and the horizontal, but yeah, I would still say firmly behind those guys. But I've tried to get a Grover Cleveland Alexander card into my inventory recently, and there have even been some little runs of caramel and strip cards that he has, and I have really been outbid on those guys, so it's kind of frustrating. But of all of his cards, I would say this is the one to get. So again, you have that culmination of player set, and I wouldn't say that there's another Alexander card that needs to be represented in the hall. One, I think, like, for some guys, one card's good enough, right?
Mhm.
So I think that this one can be that one card for old Pete.
Oh, this is a cool card. Some people call it a card. I call it a beautiful item. How would you classify this card, and why did you vote for it?
Okay, well, when I first looked at this ballot, there were two cards that really jumped out at me, and I said, "Oh yes, I can't believe this card isn't in yet." And this is probably the top one. So this is my number one with a bullet from this list. Um, it's Gehrig's rookie, and it's now widely known to be, or widely considered to be, Gehrig's rookie, and so you got to get this guy in the Hall of Fame. Of course, Gehrig, just barely overshadowed by Ruth, which is saying something. When you're within a hair of Babe Ruth, you're really talking. So definitely get this guy in here. And yes, like you've got written, who cares? It's a postcard. The the exhibits have seen this meteoric rise over the past few years, and deservedly so. So easy choice here.
Just for my sake, I'm just curious, where would you rank this with his 34 Goudey yellow background card?
I like this one better, and it was more obscure for a long time, but I would say deservedly so to surpass the Goudey. It in terms of value, and I would hope in terms of popularity too.
Okay. Oh, here's one that I wasn't expecting, even though it's a favorite of mine. I have the DiMaggio in this set without the cartoons, but always wanted the
Okay.
Feller.
Well, okay. Monster Cards likes to have fun. This one, I've got my note that this is a sentimental favorite. I really like this card. Um, I I don't know. I guess this isn't still considered Feller's rookie. It was for a while. This and the other
You got
non.
the OPG.
Yeah, yep. That earlier. Yep. That 37. Um, but I like it. I like this whole set. This is one of my favorite sets. It's crazy with the cartoons for the players and the ones that surround the player for half the set. So I'm fine if someone else, thinks this card is ridiculous, doesn't deserve a spot in there, or a different Feller card maybe. But for me, I'll give this one kind of a wink and a nod and let it get in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people forget that if Feller didn't have military service, and I think he would have over 300 wins and a lot more strikeouts, because when I think of Feller, not only do I think of an elite Hall of Fame pitcher, but I think of a better version of Nolan Ryan. And I love
Oh
Nolan
yeah,
Ryan,
yeah.
but I
Good way to
just think
think about it.
Feller.
Yeah, yeah.